While there's no debating that superhero movies are currently at their absolute best, there was a time where films about masked heroes were more likely to be found in the bargain than in the blockbuster nests. From the 60s to the 90s, most super offerings were campy, low-budget disasters, often only loosely based on the source material. Welcome to DLP Movie and check out the list of top 10 worst superhero movies ever made. Howard the Duck. Duckworld President Howard the Duck, busy reading Duckworld magazine, is launched into space, landing in Cleveland, Ohio. Howard soon discovers that he was transported to Earth when human scientists tested a cross-dimensional transport device. Unfortunately, the heroic humanoid duck isn't the only being pulled from another dimension during the test, as the dark overlord of the universe has also arrived on Earth.
Just don't show them anything else.
They look hungry. Get them a banana.
Hide them. Take them to a movie.
Look, I didn't know where else to go for help.
Coming! Coming!
Why are you so pissed off?
Why? Listen, if you got blasted millions of miles through space, ended up on another planet, and were given an IQ test by—
This spot is zany setup in some talented movie makers behind the camera. Howard the Duck was uninspired and boring filmmaking, thinning, most of all, due to an unlikable and wooden depiction of the film's starring Duck, both in terms of characterization and animatronic effects. Meager ambitions and passionless execution produced a film that is too bland to really enjoy, even as a soap at its good movie viewing. Barbed Wire. Barbed Wire was based on the Dark Horse comic book series of the same name, in which Pamela Anderson's sci-fi character did not seem to have any superpowers, and after the movie's release, she was criticized for her acting too. She also received the Razzie Award for the Worst New Star for her leading role in this movie. Making this excrement all the more unbelievable is the fact that it was a riff on Casablanca, of all things.
Now close your eyes and turn around.
Anderson's character owned a nightclub where the good, the bad, and the silicone passed through, but the time period was moved away from the comics World War II era to an apocalyptic civil war instead. Because that's cooler. Thank God Hollywood hasn't followed through on Barbed Wire's premise and started a trend of smutting up other classic films. Green Lantern. Green Lantern was released on June 17, 2011 and received generally negative reviews. Most criticized the film for its screenplay, inconsistent tone, choice in portrayal of villains, and use of CGI, while some praised Reynolds' performance. The film underperformed at the box office, grossing just $220 million against a production budget of $200 million.
The one thing that a Green Lantern is supposed to be is fearless. That isn't me.
At the time of its premiere, Peter Travers called this film comic movie hell, and while the set produced a one-dimensional superhero, it brought us a two-dimensional love story, in the form of now married co-stars Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. Based on the DC Comics series, Lantern is tasked to defend mankind with his willpower alone. It's not to be confused with the Green Lantern theory of presidential power, which stipulates that the commander-in-chief should be able to bend the legislative branch to his or her will. Though, to be fair, that hasn't worked recently either. Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance. The most recent entry on the list, Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, was so widely recognized as a terrible film that it managed to scoop a Razzie Award nomination for Worst Prequel, Remake or Ripoff. The follow-up to the only slightly better received 2007 film, Ghost Rider, is packed full of cheap and dirty action sequences, clinging desperately to what little storyline exists, and had critics foaming at the mouth.
We should be.
The film may have been criticized for the weak, yet strangely convoluted, plot, poor writing and sloppy CGI, but one of the biggest criticisms is for Nicolas Cage as Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider. His acting crossed the line between intense and ridiculous, and his performance is hard to take seriously. SUPERGIRL. SUPERGIRL is a 1984 British superhero film directed by Janet Swark and written by David Odell. The film was released in the United Kingdom on July 19, 1984 and failed to impress critics and audiences alike. Dunaway and O'Toole earned Golden Raspberry Award nominations for Worst Actress and Worst Actor, respectively.
Remember leap tall buildings with a single bound? You can look right through things.
Yes.
Bend steel bars?
Yes.
Like Superman.
We go to recapture some of the lost innocence of the whole notion of superheroes. The gift of Christopher Reeve, in his best scenes and when the filmmakers allow it, is to play Superman without laughing. To take him seriously so that we can have some innocent escapist fun. Helen Slater has the same gift, but is given even less chance to exercise it in SUPERGIRL. And the result is an unhappy, unfunny, unexciting movie. Why even go to the trouble of making a movie that feels like it's laughing at itself? Fantastic Four. Dull and downbeat, this Fantastic Four proves a woefully misguided attempt to translate a classic comic series, without the humor, joy, or colorful thrill that made it great. His movie wasn't going to be the light-hearted affair that the previous Fantastic Four movies were. Just because something is different doesn't mean it's bad, but unfortunately, the dark and gritty tone proved to be part of this movie's downfall. Worst of all, other than Reed and Ben's friendship and Reed and Sue's brief flirtation, the film didn't make much of an effort to delve into the relationships between these characters. Besides, there's not enough action. We talked earlier about how slow the movie moved, and maybe that wouldn't have been as much of a problem if there had been more thrills in the story. Steel. Here's a brilliant idea. There's this NBA basketball player who has zero acting skills, but he's so popular he's become his own brand. So let's put him in a superhero movie. What's the worst that could happen? Steel is the answer to that question. Quick backstory. In the comics, John Henry Irons is a brilliant engineer who's inspired by Superman to build himself a suit of armor. Think Iron Man but without the built-in weapons, grab a giant hammer, and be a hero. He was one of the 4 heroes who tried to take up Superman's S-shield when the Man of Steel perished at the hands of Doomsday. Steel's origin is tied to that event.
We gotta admit, the guy's got style.
Steel is bad because it's got a ho-hum plot driven by uninspired direction. It's forgettable because Shaquille O'Neal is not an actor. Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Easily recognized as the worst of Christopher Reeve's Superman films, The Quest for Peace failed on almost every level. It failed to save canon films as the studio had hoped a Superman film might, and Reeve himself regretted his involvement with the film. The budget was minuscule for a superhero film, and after, allegedly, running out of funds while still filming, the movie was cobbled together and released, only to fail at the box office. Another Razzie nominee for Worst Visual Effects, this one fell down primarily because of the terrible appearance.
Hey, Clark, stop! Clark! Clark!
Superman.
While the acting is generally considered passable, although not brilliant by any means, the special effects are incredibly cheap and give an overall low-budget feel to the film. The plot, such as it is, lacks any real depth, and the villain just doesn't seem overly threatening or engaging. The Quest for Peace is widely credited as the reason that Superman dropped out of the live-action arena for over a decade after its release. Batman and Robin. Another Razzie winner, this time for Alicia Silverstone as Worst Supporting Actress. This 90s Batman flick was nominated for an impressive 10 other Razzies, covering essentially every aspect of the film. The movie is cluttered with comic book names, introducing both Batgirl and Robin, as well as including 2 villains in Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze.
Time is now. Arnold Schwarzenegger is Mr. Freeze.
You are not sending me to the cooler.
George Clooney is Batman.
Now, didn't your mother ever tell you not to play with guns?
I hate when people talk during the movie.
Chris O'Donnell.
The film as a whole is just too over the top to be taken seriously. The jokes fly thick and fast, and the camp value is off the charts, but not in a good way. Sets and costumes are eye-wateringly bright, and feature the infamous bat nipples. Attempts to tie together all these quips and characters with plot and backstory lead to a frenetic and headache-inducing installment in Batman history. Catwoman. Where would a Bat superhero movie list be without this atrocious version of one of our favorite Batman villainesses? Halle Berry may be a phenomenal actress, but even her talents couldn't atone for this mess of a movie. Berry herself recognizes this as a terrible film, and accepted a Razzie for her role in it, at which point she even apologized for how awful it is. Catwoman's biggest issue lies in how far it deviates from the source material. Selena Kyle is inexplicably renamed Patience Phillips, and it's suggested that she is one in a long line of Catwomen who gain their powers through mystical Egyptian cat stuff. Phillips is clearly heavily inspired by the hugely superior Pfeiffer version of the character, starting out as a timid office worker killed by the higher-ups after discovering their plan to sell defective cosmetics. It's enough to make you wonder if the writers even picked up a comic, or just riffed off Batman Returns. What is your favorite movie from the list? Let us know below and do not forget to subscribe.